Welcome back.
Hi, guys.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Reproach. I'm Tux Lurzel.
I'm Stephanie Domingo.
We be drinking and we be
chatting.
Chatting and doing all sorts of things.
Politicking.
Hysterin.
No. Tim knows what to do.
Yeah.
I like that we haven't even taken a sip of alcohol
Yes.
yet. We're already a mess. It comes from within, you guys.
This is the show about scandals and scandalousness in American politics and government. Today, we are drinking a Vieux Carre, it's called. Cheers. Woo! Here we go.
When I was a kid at school learning the golden rule, teacher often used to say, if you don't tell a lie, there's not a reason why you can't be like Washington someday. How could Washington be a married man and never, never tell a lie?
That's really
Ooh, that's nice.
Yeah.
It's like a softer Manhattan.
Yeah,
maybe?
it's like a fancy sort of Creole Manhattan. Vieux Carre dates back to a famous hotel bar in the 1930s, and it first appeared in print in 1937 in Famous New Orleans Drinks and How to Make 'Em.
Ooh.
This cocktail is a New Orleans classic, and although the name is French, the pronunciation is pure Creole.
Oh.
The French pronunciation would be more like Vieux Carre, but it's Vieux Carre. It's not, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because
Cool.
it's like a New Orleans specific thing.
I didn't know that.
But it means...
I just assumed you picked this cocktail because you wanted to be fancy with your French.
No, I'm not allowed to be. I actually read something that was like, forget about your French lessons. It's not pronounced like that. Yeah. The name means like Old Square or Old Quarter, which is essentially the old name for the French Quarter in New Orleans.
Okay.
Before it was called the French Quarter. It's made with rye, cognac, sweet vermouth, and an herbal French liqueur called Benedictine, which is kind of hard to find, but we found it.
Yes.
And then it's got plenty of bitters, and some of the recipes I saw online called for a lemon twist garnish, and then some of them called for a cherry, and I already had cocktail cherries, so that's what we went with.
Yeah, I think the cherries go really well with the flavor.
Yeah.
It tastes sweeter, right? A little sweeter than
Yeah, the
Manhattan?
Benedictine it's like bitter and herbal, but it's sweet at the same time.
Yeah, I like it.
So there's no sugar or anything in
Yeah.
it. It's the combination of the sweet vermouth and the Benedictine. It's really yummy. I was
delicious.
reading the recipe and thinking it was going to be too strong and be like motor oil, but
Yeah.
I mean I like a strong drink, so I
Same.
mean, and people who do not like a strong drink, you're probably not going to be into this.
I don't think I've ever had cognac just on its own, but isn't there a little sweetness to it?
A little bit, not really.
not
I mean,
really?
it's strong.
It's strong like whiskey strong?
Yeah,
Oh.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I guess people like to just sort of drink it on its own, but
Yeah, like
it's not.
Cavassier was really big in the late 90s.
Yeah,
It had a moment.
I think that's what I had.
Really?
Cavassier, yeah.
Yes. Amazing. Season 2.
Season 2. So we're back.
How exciting.
We had ourselves a little bit of a summer break.
Yes.
We did some things. We worked on the show a little bit. We have a shop now on our website.
Get your merch.
Yeah, beyondreproachpod.com.
Brand yourselves with our logo.
Yeah. I'm not sure if everything is going to be up on the shop by the time this goes live, but we're going to have quite a few things.
Yeah.
We'll have a tote bag
Definitely
and
tote
some
bag.
rocks glasses if you want to have some Beyond Reproach cocktails in a Beyond Reproach cocktail glass.
Very on brand. There's going to be some stickers coming.
Yeah. All sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah.
We also have a Patreon that you guys should check out that will also be on our website.
Yes.
We will be announcing the winners of the contest that we mentioned in our last episode on our next mini-sode.
Yes, the best reviewer will get a shout out and all the glory.
Yeah.
We've been getting some really great reviews.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Thank you guys so much for all the
really
reviews.
thoughtful,
Yeah.
long reviews. I'm like, oh, these people are listening to our podcast.
Yes. Well, as it turns out, we thought that you could put emojis in your so we were calling for eggplants, but turns out that's not actually
Yeah, you can't
possible.
do that.
Oops. Sorry.
iTunes or it's still the iTunes store, right?
yeah.
They're on to us. And
Yeah.
they know what people want to do with emojis and disallowed that feature, unfortunately.
Yeah. So please check out our website and check out our merch shop because we are pretty proud of all the stuff that we have up on there right now.
And we think you'll like them as well, so do it. Go there.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Damn it. Click, click. Does the word kingfish mean anything to you?
Kingfish? No,
Yes.
not at all.
Do you know who Huey Long is?
I've heard of Huey Long, but...
Or was, I should say.
Well, I was just going to say, was he a politician? But obviously he's a politician. Yeah, the name sounds super familiar. I want to say he's somehow tied to the Roosevelts or something, but I guess maybe it's just the time period.
Actually, he is.
Okay.
This cocktail is super appropriate because the story starts in Louisiana.
Oh, perfect.
Yes. So in the late 1920s, the first homegrown dictator appeared on American soil and proceeded to run shit down in Louisiana.
Oh my.
Yes. This man, Huey P. Long, was a wildly controversial politician. He was loved as much as he was despised, and he's the subject of my scandalous episode. The man was the human embodiment of political scandal, as you will hear.
Amazing.
He was a masterful populist who once boasted that he bought legislators like a sack of potatoes, trading them like a deck of cards.
Wow. Bold.
Very bold. He dubbed himself the Kingfish, saying, "I'm a small fish here in Washington, but I'm the kingfish to the folks down in Louisiana." Long to this day remains one of the most flamboyant American politicians. He owned more than 100 suits, and he wore them with orchid shirts and bizarre floral ties and spats.
So he's basically Roger Stone?
Oh my God. Oh,
Crazy.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like a cartoon villain.
Yeah.
There was one article that described him as a technicolored gangster.
Wow.
I'm like, yes. To his supporters, he was a champion of the downtrodden who taxed wealthy elites to enact social programs to help the poor. To his detractors, he was a buffoon, a corrupt demagogue, or even worse, a potential fascist who used bribery, blackmail, and intimidation to get his way. He fought the political machinery in Louisiana to become governor and then senator. He attracted a national cult following with his promise to make every man a king. And he was assassinated 1 month after announcing he would run for president against FDR.
Wow.
Yeah. Wild.
Okay. Wow.
All that.
Yeah.
All that and more. Okay, but first some background. Huey Pierce Long Jr. was born August 30th, 1893, the seventh of 9 kids. He grew up in the hill country of Wynn Parish in northern Louisiana. His father, Huey Sr., raised cattle, and when the railroad extended its line into town, he sold a chunk of land to developers. The proceeds made the Long family pretty well off compared to the people in a pretty poor rural community. Mm-hmm. But Huey later in life liked to tell things a little bit differently. He fancied himself a rags to riches story.
Oh.
Yeah. After being kicked out of high school, Long's mother tried to steer him toward a career in the ministry. It wasn't for him. Instead, for several years, he found incredibly fulfilling work as a traveling salesman, selling lard substitute.
Lard substitute?
Lard, yeah. This brand called Cottolene.
So like a vegetable shortening?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was through this job that he met his future wife, Rose. Just after he was married, 19-year-old Huey told his wife about his political aims. He was going to first run for a minor state office, then governor, then senator, and finally be elected president. So he had some very lofty goals.
Yeah, no big deal. He wasn't even a politician yet.
Nope.
He's like, I will be president
Nope,
someday.
I will be president
Okay.
at 19.
Good. That's bold, but good for him.
Yes. So Long set about his ambitious career path with laser focus. Despite being a high school dropout, he passed the Louisiana bar exam and became a lawyer after only taking 2 law school classes at Tulane.
Holy shit.
He didn't have a lot of money. His older brother was a lawyer.
Okay.
So he basically financed him and his wife to just be at Tulane for a year. So he read every law book he could find, but only took 2 classes. And he sweet-talked his way into a bar exam, and he passed.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you say he was kicked out of high school?
Yes, okay. So to get into... He was kicked out for a myriad of reasons. He kind of started a gang at one point. He had the boys they would wear these ribbons on their shirts to signify that they were in the gang.
Oh my God.
So there were special rules that they had to adhere to. So when the administration got wind of that, they're like, no, you can't do this.
Yeah.
And also, another reason why he was kicked out was after he finished the 11th grade, because at the time, the 11th grade was the final grade.
Oh.
But he finished, and it became a national mandate that the 12th grade was like a thing. And he's just like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm already done. I'm not.
Yeah,
you can't
yeah.
force me. So he started circulating this crazy petition to get the principal fired.
Oh my God.
And he was expelled for that.
Wow.
And the principal was actually fired. He got enough signatures. He got the principal fired.
It's not the principal's fault that this is a federal mandate.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
But some like patterns emerged early, like vengeance is really big with him and justice.
Okay.
So yeah, that's why he was kicked out.
Yeah, crazy.
I took that out of my story because I'm like, we don't really need to know, but...
That's a fun detail, though.
Right?
But yeah, I was just kind of like, in my head, I was like, well, was he kicked out of school because he was dumb? But obviously not if he's passing a bar exam after 2 classes. So it sounds like he's like one of those kids that's like too smart for their own good.
Yeah, skip
and
grades.
Starts like stirring up drama because they're bored.
Yeah, because he can.
Yeah.
And yeah, he was just running the kids. And yeah, he got the principal fired. Can you believe that?
Insane.
Okay, so as soon as he had lawyer painted on his office, he was searching the state's constitution for a public office that he could hold without a minimum age limit. And the only post open to the then 24-year-old Huey was a seat on the Railroad Commission. So Huey did not have the backing of the political establishment when he ran for a seat on the commission, so he took his case straight to the people, as is his way. He blanketed his district with printed circulars attacking the corporate monopolies and delivering speeches in every town and crossroads. At 25, he won his first election. From the start of his... I know, 25, so young. So young. From the start of his political career, Long operated according to a different set of principles. He practically turned the first meeting he attended into a denunciation of Standard Oil.
Wow.
The Rockefeller outfit. So he's, aiming
deal.
for the top, throwing stones. At the following meeting, he demanded that the oil company be declared a public utility. The balls.
Yeah.
The balls.
Especially back then.
Yes.
Jeez.
In almost all of his battles, Long took the side of the little guy against large corporations. Over the next several years, he took on the railroads, the telegraph companies, and the governor's administration. In 1923, he forced one of the state's major phone companies to give up a 20% rate increase that it had been granted. Long argued the case upon appeal before the U.S. Supreme Court and won. The Chief Justice at the time, Justice Taft, described him as one of the best legal minds of his generation that he had ever seen.
Wow.
Yeah. So... Wow. Thousands of customers received refund checks because of this case, and he made sure that they knew whom they had to thank for this windfall.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good way to get votes.
Right? Put some money in people's pockets.
Right, yeah.
Despite being great in the courtroom, Long was not a great public speaker. He was shrill. He was uncouth. He gestured wildly as he talk-screamed to his audience.
I want to say that I've seen clips of him talking because I've seen like a lot of...
They're
that
amazing
I love the
clips.
Roosevelts.
Yes.
Or like...
Yes.
I have a...
You love them.
I have a feeling... Yeah. Yeah, I do love them, even though
They're not perfect.
Yes, exactly.
No one's perfect. They're people too.
But anyways, I've definitely seen clips of him speaking at like the DNC or something.
Yeah, yes, he was there. I read one article that said that he sawed the air with his arms, and I'm just like, what does that mean? And then I look for a video, and I'm like, he's doing basically the Trump.
Yeah,
he's doing the Trump.
Well, if we can find a clip,
there are plenty. We will find.
We'll put it on Facebook or
there's
something,
a bunch.
Instagram, whatever. Yeah.
Despite the fact that he talk screamed to his audience, he was charismatic. From his traveling salesman days, he knew how to advertise, how to draw a crowd, and how to make a good impression. By visiting people's homes, he learned how they lived and how to connect with them.
That's a big...
Huge.
That means something,
Huge.
For sure. Yeah.
Yes. The fights he waged on behalf of his constituents generated headlines, often because he wrote them himself. One veteran reporter recalled that during the phone rebate case, Long routinely dropped off articles in praise of his actions, along with a half-gallon jar of moonshine. Oh. So, yeah, this is an ad campaign everyone can get behind.
Yeah, I'll take it.
All right? It's like my kind of politician.
Yeah, you got my vote.
Like most southern states between the Reconstruction era and the Civil Rights Movement, Louisiana's Republican Party was virtually non-existent. This meant that the Democratic primaries were the real contests over who would be Louisiana's governor. The most important Democratic machine, they called themselves the Old Regulars, was a clannish group who were pros at the usual form of conservative political graft, doling out cushy jobs, padding registration rolls, and harassing unaffiliated voters. They aligned themselves with the state's business interests and basically controlled Louisiana. So what do you know about Louisiana in the 1920s, if anything?
I'm like virtually nothing. I know that because, well, this has nothing to do with anything, but I know that because New Orleans was a port city, that there was a lot of things. Well, there were things coming into the country that might not, like drugs and stuff were coming in from the Caribbean and stuff. But I don't know if that has anything to do with your story. But
yeah, not really.
Okay.
Not really.
I mean, I don't really know anything about Louisiana.
Well, Louisiana was backwards AF, basically. Shocking, right?
I wanted to... I'm not even going to say that.
What?
It's so different now.
Yes. Yeah. My face is that emoji with all the teeth right now. Like, a whopping 60% of the state's 2 million citizens lived in rural poverty. Education was basically a joke. In the few communities that even had public schools, most families couldn't afford to purchase the books required for their kids to attend. The adult literacy rate was the lowest in the nation at 75%. A poll tax kept many poor white people from voting. Selective application of literacy tests and KKK terror meant that black people were completely kept from the voting process. To make matters even worse, dirt roads and abundant water hazards made travel really, really difficult. In a state that covered nearly 52,000 square miles, there existed only 300 miles of paved roads and only 3 bridges in a state that's 16% waterways.
16% waterways. That's
3 bridges.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so just like people were just left out there to just be like off the res, basically.
Yeah.
So when Long decided to run for governor in 1924, he realized that the Old Regulars and just about every other party organization in the state with any influence would be working really hard against him. So he came out swinging. Long's campaign was a tour de force of aggression. He became one of the first Southern politicians to use radio addresses and sound trucks.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Local papers agreed that rarely had there been a candidate whose utterances were so, quote, shot through with gross error and so careless of the truth generally.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
The major emerging issue of the campaign was the Ku Klux Klan. Long was reluctant to address the issue because his political support was strongest in Klan territory. So he was worried that a condemnation like a strong one would alienate his base, basically.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Right? Let the record reflect that Long was not affiliated with the Klan.
Okay.
But his defensiveness cast doubts amongst some voters. And the fact that he began wearing white linen suits did not help either.
Oh.
Yeah, so he might have been like signaling to them.
Sure, I mean... a politician courting.
Yeah.
That,
what?
Yeah.
In the South? What?
I can't say that I should be surprised by that in any way whatsoever.
But in an election completely dominated by race, Huey refused to play the race card, which is really unique for a Southern politician of the time. He instead campaigned on issues of economic equality.
Oh, okay.
So, of course, he lost.
Yeah. Okay.
You're like, go him.
Okay, goodbye.
So Long cited election day rain as suppressing voter turnout amongst his base, which is probably true because there was a big rainstorm and, like, again, so few paved roads that they just weren't able to make it to their polling stations because their roads were gone.
This is sounding super familiar, but...
It's scary that there were so few roads. They basically just didn't want poor people participating in government.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the sun would be shining 4 years later. In 1928, Huey made his second bid for governor, again without any party machine backing. He campaigned with the slogan, "Every man a king," that he lifted from the populist hero William Jennings Bryan. Huey's revolutionary campaign methods transformed Louisiana politics. He crisscrossed the state, campaigning in rural areas, completely disenfranchised by the political establishment. He promised needy citizens good roads, sturdy bridges, free hospital care, free education, and lower property taxes.
Wow.
A lot. Poor voters felt privileged that a candidate would take the trouble to court them. This was a first for them.
Yeah.
So Huey's victory toppled a corrupt political establishment that had ruled since the French. Louisiana and its politics would never be the same. He won because of a visceral connection that he had with white rural voters. He appealed to their lowly status, explaining that simple evils, the rich and their corporations, held down the people and that only he could help end poverty and bring Louisiana into the modern era. The aim of Huey's revolution was to wield the poor into a viable political force. He wanted to make the poor redneck, the poor Cajun, and the poor Negro see that their political common denominator was poor. And that they...
No, but I mean, like, this is...
Revolutionary.
This is today. Like, this is something we still haven't gotten past
I know.
this.
And he was doing this in 28 in the South. Like, mind blown. Mind blown.
Gee,
So he was saying that they must take this common cause to the voting booth.
Yeah.
When he was finished, poor Louisianans would have a lot of shiny new things, but at what cost?
Yeah.
You'll be the judge. It's a lot of crazy things happen, but...
It wouldn't be beyond reproach if...
Yeah. Right? Long won the governorship by the largest margins in the state's history. He reasoned that this gave him a real mandate to reform. During his campaign, Long made two major promises. The first was to provide free textbooks for school children, the second to build more roads. However, once in office as governor on May 21st, 1928, Long moved quickly to consolidate his power. He fired hundreds of opponents in the state bureaucracy at all ranks, replacing all employees who owed their jobs to the old regulars with workers loyal only to him.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, he fired cabinet-level heads of department, board members, civil servants, and even state road workers. Wow. Long would tackle his campaign promises, but first he needed to get his house in order. Mm-hmm. He replaced the old guard's cronyism with a new loyalty-based version.
Yeah.
He cultivated loyalty by giving people a chance to work in his administration. It soon became common practice for the average Joe to approach him for a job, college scholarship, or any other type of assistance.
Okay.
All he asked for in return was complete and total allegiance.
This doesn't sound familiar at all.
Also money.
Oh.
Every state employee who depended on Long for a job was required to, air quotes, voluntarily contribute 10% of their salary.
10%?
10% of their salaries, yes. The money went directly into his political war chest, which raised roughly $1 million in today's money.
How is that legal? Holy shit.
No comment.
Yeah. Okay.
To continue.
Jesus.
How is that legal? I can't answer that question.
It's not. Is the answer.
The answer is it's not.
Okay.
But he did it.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, he raised $1 million each election cycle by doing this. And few employees complained because they knew that if Long lost his job, they would lose theirs.
Yeah. Okay.
So the funds were to be used at Long's discretion for political and personal purposes. Without a base of wealthy political contributors, Huey reasoned that this was an appropriate source of funds for his political activities.
Okay.
So because he didn't have business behind him, he's like, okay, these people are just going to pay their way into...
I mean, you got to have funding from somewhere, and this is before the age of like
private donors?
Yeah, private. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that you could...
Yeah, but the private donors there are wealthy elites, and they're not giving any money to him.
There's no social media. There's no way for you to put out like a
there's no GoFundMe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
for the people without roads.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is what he fancied as an appropriate source of funds for his activities. Once his control over the state's political apparatus was strengthened, Long pushed a number of bills through the 1929 session of the Louisiana State Legislature to fulfill campaign promises. Long began an unprecedented public works program, building roads, bridges, hospitals, educational institutions. His legislative agenda brought free books for school children, adult literacy programs, a highway, natural gas heating to New Orleans, and buildings still standing at LSU. His bills met severe opposition from many legislatures, wealthy citizens, and the media. However, undeterred, Long just used even more aggressive tactics to get his way and to assure passage of the legislation he favored. He would show up unannounced on the floor of both the House and the Senate, and sometimes in committee, he would just roll up in there.
The state Senate and state...
Yes.
Jeez.
He would roll up and just start bullying people, basically.
This guy sounds like a nut job.
Yeah.
It sounds like he was doing some good things, and it was probably like a net positive.
Yeah.
But what a nut job.
He's such a multifaceted, complicated individual.
Yeah.
Who, like, I can see both sides of why people hated him. But he did do some good. A lot of really great things got done under his administration.
I mean, he has like a public works program going before the Depression.
Oh, yes. Like, yes.
That's a big fucking deal.
Yeah. In full swing before the Depression. Like, it's wild. So, so he would show up unannounced on the floor and just bully people. These tactics were unprecedented, but they worked. And by delivering on his campaign promises, Long achieved hero status amongst the state's rural poor population. So everyone was happy.
Yeah.
Except for the elites and like the old guard.
Oh, fuck them.
Yeah. But I bet you're wondering how the capital F did he get the money to do all of this? Was it sorcery, you ask?
Yes. Yeah. It had to have been some sort of alchemy, right?
Good try.
Yeah.
Good try. I could see why you would think that. The state government had no money to build a fourth bridge, let alone like give free books to the poor's.
I can assume that the rest of Louisiana had $0.
Negative dollars.
Yeah. But New Orleans had to have been bringing in a lot of money.
It had been ruled since the French, and they had a grip over all of the money coming in.
Like the old
guard had been in place since the French. So for hundreds of years.
So all that money is being funneled into certain pockets.
Yes.
I see. Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, that makes sense.
So Long first proposed increasing the extraction tax on oil, timber, and sulfur. This move was shot down by the Supreme Court. Long's response to this setback was to raise the stakes in classic Long fashion. He once advised, quote, always take the offensive. The defensive ain't worth a damn. He has the best quotes.
Yeah.
They're so fun. So he proposed a new oil processing tax, most of the proceeds of which would come from Standard Oil, whose refinery at the time in Baton Rouge was one of the largest in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, because it's such a big port city. Like, it's a perfect place to build, like, a giant oil, like, refinery.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, he's hitting really high, taking his aim at Standard Oil. So Standard Oil fought back the best way they knew how, with bribery. According to one state representative, the company offered as much as $20,000 per vote.
$20,000 per vote?
Per vote, correct. To anyone willing to vote against Huey in this oil processing tax. That was it was an extra 3 cents. It went up from 2 cents to 5 cents. And they're just like, no, we rebuke you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, $20,000 per vote. It's absurd.
Holy Christ.
So the tax was defeated.
Okay, yeah.
And Long, not unreasonably, accused lawmakers of having been bought.
Well, because they were.
What?
$20,000 per vote.
Yeah. Literally bought. By this point, even many representatives who had been inclined to support him had grown wary of his strong-arm tactics. And so just 11 months after taking office, Long found himself facing impeachment. They hit him with the whole book.
Yeah.
All in all, Long faced 19 allegations. They included bribing lawmakers, carrying a concealed weapon, demolishing the previous governor's mansion without legislative authorization.
What? Demolishing?
Okay, this isn't in my outline, but I fucking love this story. So
oh my God.
he thought the governor's mansion was too drab, so he demolished it and he recreated the White House. It's so fucking tacky.
Oh my God.
But it looks like the White House.
That's insane.
So
what a weird dude.
I know.
What a weird thing to do.
I love it.
He sounds like the weirdest combination of like a progressive, like New Deal sort of politician, but also like a combination of Trump
sociopath.
And Roger Stone.
Definitely. Like, populist.
Trump going into the White House and being like, this shit is old and they don't have golden toilets in here. Fuck this place.
Yeah, basically.
Oh my God.
Right? Okay, so also one of the charges was He was illegally influencing the judiciary, and he was misusing state funds, which, I mean, all of that is true. He was even accused of asking his bodyguard to kill a state representative who opposed his agenda.
What the fuck?
Yes.
Holy shit.
And you know how we know this? A sworn affidavit from the bodyguard.
Yeah.
Being like, yeah, he told me to kill him.
I let the record reflect my jaw is currently on the floor.
So just a little, conspiracy to commit murder. No biggie.
11 months into his term.
Yeah. He was also charged with engaging in immoral conduct and using foul language.
Imagine.
The lesser charges, yes.
Yeah.
So the witnesses at the impeachment hearing were a motley crew. Oh my God, it was such a circus. So I have two of my favorite witnesses, where one was a hula dancer who testified that one night she saw the governor acting, quote, very frisky. So Tux just clutched his pearls.
I don't even have pearls. And they're clutched.
It was implied. The clutch was implied. I saw it.
Oh my God.
Yes.
A hula dancer too, though.
Yeah, right?
In New Orleans.
The other quote that I really loved was, there was a prominent merchant who recounted a time when Long referred to the editor of a newspaper as a shit ass.
Shit
I'm
ass.
like, I love that this is a real quote. I need to start using shit ass now.
Oh my God.
A shit ass.
This is
like, thank you.
The best story.
Right?
I love him.
He's so good. I have such mixed feelings, but I overwhelmingly love and support him, even though he was a psychopath.
Yeah. He sounds like a terrible fucking person, but
the worst.
In the best way possible.
Yeah. So Long portrayed this really messy impeachment as a battle between him and his old nemesis, Standard Oil. The impeachment even led to mass fistfights on the state house floor, where several lawmakers admitted to using brass knuckles. Oh. The fight is known as Bloody Monday.
Oh my fucking God.
Yes. So in the end, the House voted to impeach Long on 8 of the 19 counts. However, Long was able to, quote unquote, win over enough senators to avoid conviction in the Senate.
Wow.
And these senators were soon rewarded with lucrative state jobs. So
surprise.
Right? So there are two schools of thought on how the hearings affected Long. One has it that he was unmoored by the ordeal, and the other is that the experience only aggravated his ruthlessness.
Uh-huh.
In either case, whatever constraints he might have once felt dissolved. Mm-hmm. And he went on to swing back really, really hard against his political opponents. There's a quote that he says, "I used to try to get things done by saying please. Now I dynamite them out of my path."
Oh my God, I love him.
Right? So what comes next reminds me of this really iconic quote from the blaxploitation film The Mack. Have you seen it?
The Mack?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've seen that one.
It's about prostitution.
They're all about prostitution.
Never mind.
This is totally tangential and has nothing to do with anything.
Go on.
As you know, I love TCM.
Yes.
Coffee was just on TCM.
Oh, I love Coffee.
Yeah, and that one's sort of about, drugs and prostitution.
Yeah, no, the same with The Mack.
Yeah, they all have sort of the same plot.
Yeah, that's true. So there's a quote that says, "We can settle this like you have some class, or we can get into some gangster shit." And
this guy.
No, that's from The Mack, but obviously.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But still, it sounds like it could have been him.
Yeah, no, Huey chose the gangster shit option. Yeah. He did not want to settle it like he had some class.
Wow. This is like, I don't know why, but this is almost making me understand Trump supporters.
Oh, absolutely. That is why I chose this story. I'm just like, this is so telling of the times. Like, this is, I can't believe this happened, but obviously I can believe this happened because look at where we are.
Because I'm always like, I don't understand why they like him.
It's
like
populism.
If he were doing the right things, but doing them in the wrong way, I would totally be behind him.
Oh, absolutely. Same.
Like, as in the case of Huey Long.
Yeah.
But because he's doing the wrong things in the wrong way, I'm like, fuck that dude.
Yeah, exactly. So, since the state's newspapers were financed by the opposition, in March 1930, Long founded his own newspaper. The Louisiana Progress, he called it.
Okay.
He used his paper to broadcast achievements, but mostly to denounce his enemies. Because, we know who he is.
They're all losers.
Exactly. Sad. In order to receive lucrative state contracts, companies were first expected to buy ads in his paper. Wow. Which is like so corrupt. Damn. Yeah. Damn. Long tried to pass laws placing a surtax on newspapers and forbidding the publishing of what he deemed slanderous materials. But thankfully these efforts failed. But still, he tried it. He tried to get rid of the free press, basically.
Doesn't sound familiar at all. I've never...
Right?
Can't imagine anyone trying
this
to do
could never happen here. Long took to demanding kickbacks of 20% from all businesses that won state contracts, which again, it's like, you can't do this shit. But the proceeds went towards financing his political operation and his newspaper. When the Depression hit and government jobs became increasingly valuable, Huey kept adding positions, bridge tenders, game wardens, highway workers, and these, of course, went only to loyalists.
But that's kind of amazing that he was just like,
oh, yeah.
I'm going to just...
The Depression basically didn't hit Louisiana for this reason. Wow. Because, like, he created so many state jobs.
And it was still all just sort of being paid for through taxes on industry.
Industry, yeah.
Which
mostly
was,
oil
it was
and
all
gas.
coming into New Orleans no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and there was a lot of money coming in, but it just wasn't going into the pockets of the wealthy.
Sorry about it.
Yeah. He's so good.
I mean, he sounds super fucking shady. Yeah. But like...
When I found him, I'm like, this is love. This is a very complicated love. Yeah. But this feels like a very true form of it as well. Because he did a lot of shit. He really did. Okay. I mean, he did it the wrong way, but... So, in June 1930, 300... It's so funny that 300 people were so against him. 300 of his most committed foes formed a group calling themselves the Constitutional League. They were devoted to derailing his agenda by any means necessary.
These are rich people, I'm assuming.
Rich people, business. They call them the planter class. I'm like, okay, people who used to own people.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
By planter, you mean plantation owner?
I'm like, that's such a cute term. Planter class. Look at them. But Long mocked them and referred to them as the Constipational League. I'm like, this man has no fucking couth.
Oh my God.
He has anti-couth. Negative couth.
Seriously, negative couth.
He made a poop joke, you guys. In the 1930 legislative session, Long proposed another major road building initiative, as well as the construction of a new Capitol building in Baton Rouge. The state legislature was not having it. They blocked all of these measures, and Huey countered by announcing that he would run for the U.S. Senate in the fall as a referendum on his programs. Wow. He said that he would resign the governorship if he lost the Senate race. But if he won, this would signal to the legislature where their constituents stood. Mm-hmm. And Huey soundly defeated the incumbent, Senator Joseph E. Ransdell. And so when Long won, it was clear to his foes that further resistance would be futile. Wow. The old regulars pressed for peace. They were tired of fighting and losing to him, I guess, over and over again. So... Long, such a jerk. He granted them peace on the condition that they turn over most of their political apparatus to him.
Peace in what way? Like, he was still going to collect taxes from them.
Yeah, but stop fighting him.
But they were fighting him. Yeah. He wasn't... I mean, the only thing he was doing to fight them was to take their money, which he was going to keep doing.
Yeah. Well, he fought them in his press.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay,
it was
so
very,
he would stop
very
slandering them
if
they...
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was kind of like a ceasefire.
Sure, okay.
They just had to kiss the rings and just stop doing what they were doing previously.
And accept that they were going to pay a whole shit ton of tax.
Taxes.
Which they probably should have been paying anyways, because they're benefiting from being in this state that they're not doing anything for.
Yeah.
If you're going to make money, you have to enrich
others other than yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, they were enriching I'm guessing the places, the 300 miles of road is where they lived.
Yeah. Yeah. Or where their businesses needed to be able to access or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, they made peace, and it was around this time that Long acquired the nickname the Kingfish, after a smooth-talking schemer on the radio show Amos and Andy. Do you know that show?
Yeah.
Trash.
Yeah.
Real trash. Because
I've heard of it. I don't really know it.
Yeah, I've heard of it too, but then I looked into it. I'm like, this is grade A garbage. Mm-hmm. So it's supposed to be two Chicago black men.
Okay.
And they're voiced by white actors, just like...
What?
It was the 20s, but yeah, just being extra. black as white people. It was a radio show. But they were pretending to be black people from the inner city in Chicago.
Okay, I've heard of it, but I had no idea what it actually was.
And the Kingfish was this character that was kind of like a scammer, like proposing like get rich quick schemes to Amos and Andy, and they would like fall for it.
Good God, I'm like
mortified, right?
Shook.
Horrified.
I'm shook. I'm gooped.
You're gooped. Hashtag gooped.
From Drag Race.
Look into it. It's a word. It's a word as long as you keep using it, you guys.
Look it up.
Gooped is real.
Gooped.
So yeah, I looked into it. I'm like, this is trash. But he was so taken by the name that he started answering his phone like, hello, this is Kingfish. Like
oh my God.
He felt like it was a badge of honor that he's
yeah.
like a schemer and like clever.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So Long waited for more than a year after winning his Senate seat before showing up in Washington to claim it due to a bitter falling out that he had with his lieutenant governor. Huey was reluctant to leave Louisiana until he had installed a proper successor because he was worried that once he left, like all of the things would be reversed.
Yeah.
Basically. So he needed to like groom someone or like basically handpick someone to take over governor from him because he didn't trust this lieutenant governor.
But it had to be somebody that would continue his legacy is what I was trying to say.
Yes.
But
so the lieutenant governor claimed that Huey vacated his governorship upon election to the Senate, and he staged a coup and had himself sworn in as governor.
Jesus.
Yeah. The lieutenant governor claimed that the Baton Rouge Hotel was the new seat of government, like just where he was. Wow. And Huey responded that he was still governor because he hadn't yet taken the oath of office as senator yet by design. Because he's like, I'm not doing that until I have it secured, basically.
Yeah.
So since he was still the governor, he called in the National Guard to secure the Capitol. Yeah. And he declared that since the lieutenant governor decided he was going to be governor, that he vacated his position as lieutenant governor, and the courts agreed. And under the state rules, the president of the Senate, a loyalist aptly named O.K. Allen, his name was like Oscar something, Allen, he became the new lieutenant governor. So with his friend set to succeed him, Long resigned as governor and left for Washington.
Wow.
Yeah. 2 years later, he'd be killed by an assassin's bullet. Stay tuned for part 2 next time when Huey Long goes to Washington and gets himself killed.
Oh my God, cliffhanger! Wow.
Right? Tune in.
This is the first episode that I've ever wished we had it on video because my facial expressions alone throughout this whole story.
There were a lot. His eyes were gooped.
Yes. Every part of my face was being gooped separately. Independently from one another. Oh my God.
Yeah,
okay.
so I'm going to leave it there.
Wow. I literally cannot.
It gets crazier. You haven't seen nothing.
This man.
You haven't seen nothing.
This man. Well, thank you for actually finding a way to get me to empathize with Trump supporters. Yeah. Because I finally understand.
Mission accomplished.
Being able to separate the bad deeds from the
actions.
Yeah.
From the end result. Yeah.
Wow. This cocktail is so fucking good,
right?
By the way.
Oh.
I was really not, when I was reading the recipe, I was like, that doesn't even sound good.
What?
And then I made it and I was like, one sip and I was like, oh.
Yes. Now I get to drink some.
I don't know if I'm just giddy from that story because it was so.
I was getting so excited.
I feel like I'm not even going to be able to speak for my story. Well, it's time for us to make fresh cocktails and we'll be back in but a moment.
Yes.
Spoiler alert, I've never been to New Orleans, even though I would love to go at some point.
Excuse me?
I know, it's weird.
I was about to say, excuse me.
Excuse
I'm like,
me.
I want people. I'm like, I want people to like me.
Yeah, that's a good way to make people hate you.
Tim, edit that out. Let the people think I'm cool. I
Anyways.
grew up in the 90s.
Yeah, we're victims of our time.
Thank you. Yes, we need support groups. Solidarity.
But yeah, as somebody who loves history as much as I do, it's weird. And food and cocktails and whatever.
We need to go.
I know.
We need to do a road trip.
But I
Maybe
just
go
don't
to
like
Dollywood.
heat.
Oh.
I don't like heat, especially humidity.
Ooh, the heat down there is oppressive.
Yeah.
And I fucking love heat, but it is hot as hell.
That's not for me.
Hot as hell. Even in the spring, it's hot as hell.
Can we go in like February?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, February would be perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, or like December.
But also Dollywood. You mentioned Dollywood. And
Yeah.
We're there. Even though we've never been, we've already been.
So,
We're like,
I hear there's a wig museum.
Okay, why are we not there right now?
As I'm saying that, I'm like, we have failed ourselves.
We're going to be doing...
Okay, there's still some summer left. Maybe we should just go.
We just have to go. We have to do a live show in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee.
We need to go.
Okay, guys, get ready to buy tickets for our live show.
It's like our version of Disney World.
Yeah.
It's like the happiest place on earth.
Much rather go to Dollywood than Disney World. Okay. Anyways, these cocktails are way too smooth and way too easy to drink, and I'm like...
And I feel like I got you hype with my story.
God, that was such a good...
Yeah. I just want to apologize to our listeners because I was stumbling over my words because I was just so excited.
Hopefully Tim cut it in a way that...
makes me sound like I know English.
I speak American.
That I talk real good.
You do talk real good.
Thank you.
So we're back with cocktails, and I'm about to start my story. And I have to say, we did not plan this in any way whatsoever, but I mentioned Huey Long's ties to the Roosevelts.
Yeah.
I'm going to be talking about FDR today.
Stop it.
Yes.
Wow. Yay. Wow, this episode is
weird.
feeling like a period piece.
It seems like it was on purpose, but it was
right?
not. Yeah.
I'm into it.
So today I'll be talking about Franklin Delano Roosevelt,
yes,
aka FDR, and how he was simultaneously a great president and a seriously shitty excuse for a husband.
I would like to say that I'm shocked.
He was the garbage juice of husbands.
I know that his wife, I know very little about her, but like every little detail that I do know, I'm like, she is too good for any man.
So when I say that I love the Roosevelts, the more that I have researched the Roosevelts, the more I realize that it's her.
Yeah.
That I'm actually
she's like the Lizzo of like first ladies.
Yeah.
Like her pussy is not good enough for anyone.
100%. Yeah.
Lizzo has this like iconic tweet. She's like, I really think my pussy might not be good for any man. And I'm like, facts.
Yeah.
And then like all the lesbians are just like, but pick me.
Right. Yeah. So for those of you who have been living under a rock for the past several years with your fingers in your ears, FDR was one of the most beloved presidents in our nation's history, serving from 1933 to 1945. He helped keep our nation together during the Great Depression, developing some of the most innovative and long-lasting social aid programs in American history, while also organizing an ambitious investment in infrastructure that we still benefit from today. He went on to help us find our way through most of World War II, dying just a few months short of victory. He was also the first and last president ever elected to 4 terms, and he was an amazing and inspirational man.
Yeah.
But as Stephanie has already told us,
that he is a man.
Yes. In her story about the Newport sex scandal, he was far from beyond reproach.
Oh, far from it. Yeah.
He was quite reproachable.
Yes.
And today I'll be talking about his super dysfunctional marriage. In the beginning, on a train trip in the summer of 1902, Franklin bumped into his 5th cousin's niece, the plain, serious, and bookish Eleanor Roosevelt. They soon started a secret romance and were engaged in 1903. Franklin's mother, Sarah Ann Delano, disapproved of the match and made Franklin promise that he would wait a full year to announce their engagement.
Why did she disapprove?
Basically, she would have disapproved of anyone. It wasn't... Eleanor was not beautiful.
And?
Even in her 20s.
Okay.
But they're rich, and she thought her son, Sarah Ann, thought
it's
that...
his mother.
His mother
Oh,
disapproved.
I thought it was her mother.
No, his mother.
Okay, his mother. Okay, her baby boy.
Exactly. So she thought that he could do better, essentially, but she really would have disapproved of anyone that he paired with. So basically, FDR was an only child. His mother...
that makes it so much worse.
Yes.
He is the worst, man.
He
I
was
already
a
know
total
this.
mama's boy. Super mama's boy.
So have you ever dated an only child? Don't do it.
I'm trying to remember there's one guy that I'm trying to did he have any siblings? And
only children
he was
should
so
only
selfish.
be with only children. And there's nothing, like my mom would say, there's a lid for every pot.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't date them.
So he's a super mama's boy, and his mother's devotion to him almost kind of bordered on obsession. Like her husband was dead. Oh. She only had one son, and she was like devoted to him and had nothing else going on in her life. So while she claimed to disapprove of Eleanor specifically, any woman that he had matched up with would have been wrong in some way.
Yeah, definitely.
So either way, she hoped that if she made them wait this full year, that he would sort of like grow bored with Eleanor, because she was kind of bookish and boring and plain and not beautiful in like 1903 conventional ways. So she actually even took Franklin on a cruise to the Caribbean for like several months, I think.
Oh, wow.
Hoping that once the year was up, he would have like met someone else or changed his mind or have grown bored with her. But once the year was up, they announced their engagement. They were married on St. Patrick's Day, 1905. And Eleanor's uncle Theodore Roosevelt gave her away at their wedding. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Whoa. Star-studded.
Even after their marriage, his mother continued to be the worst. As a, quote, wedding gift.
Oh, no.
Sarah had a pair of brownstones built on East 65th Street in Manhattan so that she could live directly next door to her husband. Or to, I keep saying her husband,
because
her son.
Freudian slip over here.
Seriously. So he could live next to her son and his new wife. During construction, she asked the builders to install a series of connecting doors between the two row houses so that she could drop in whenever she felt like it.
Oh, no.
Without having to like go out the front door and come back in.
Did she really do this?
This happened, yes.
Oh.
There were several doors on all floors. There were doors so she could like slip into their drawing room. She could go into their children's bedrooms without having to like knock or...
So they're living together. All of them
yes.
are living... Okay.
Yes.
That's healthy.
She was overbearing. Meddling.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Constantly overruled Eleanor's parenting decisions. Spoiled her children, her grandchildren rotten.
Yeah, of course.
And she even took it upon herself to furnish and decorate her son's building so that Eleanor would never feel completely comfortable there. Always felt like she was a guest in her own home because it was essentially Sarah Ann Delano's house and not her house.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the, well, there were a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons that Eleanor ended up building this sort of fiercely independent life of teaching, writing, volunteer work, and activism, political activism.
Okay. I want to say something that might... Was she a lesbian? Okay. The streets be talking?
Yeah. We'll be revisiting Eleanor next episode.
Okay.
Today we're talking about...
Oh, we're doing like double episodes.
Isn't that so weird? It's such a coincidental...
I love it.
This was not intentional.
No, not at all.
And
I like it.
Initially, my plan for the first episode was to talk about Eleanor, but there's too many things about what FDR did that there needs to be context.
She was kind of on my list.
So I don't want to give anything away, but it's unconfirmed whether or not she was a lesbian.
Okay.
But she might have been.
Like Oprah and Gail.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. She had this sort of fiercely independent life of her own because she'd never felt comfortable at home and... Because
she thought she was a person?
Well, exactly, yeah. And she was not treated as a person. She was treated as a guest in her own life. So in 1912, Eleanor and Franklin moved to Washington when he was appointed Assistant Secretary of the Navy.
Oh, yes. I remember this.
Gearing up to entrap some gay dudes, as you'll remember from season 1.
Sure did.
On top of Eleanor's activism and volunteering, she was completely overwhelmed by all the social calls that were required of her as a politician's wife. So in 1914, she hired a social secretary named Lucy Mercer to help her sort of get organized and put everything in order. And over time, Lucy took on everything from managing the household, paying their bills, taking care of the children, everything. Wow. She was like running their shit for them, paying their bills. Like,
so wait, she took care of the kids, or
Lucy
hired someone to take care of the kids?
No, she did it. This secretary was like, basically she was like
a babysitter, a secretary, a personal assistant.
Yeah. She essentially was Eleanor's personal assistant.
With them?
I think she did, yeah. Before long, though, she was also taking care of Eleanor's husband, too.
What?
So,
Okay.
in the summer of 1916, Eleanor decided to escape DC's heat and humidity and take the children to their summer home on Campobello Island off the northern coast of Maine.
Okay.
Sort of between Maine and Canada.
Yeah.
You'll find out more as we go on, but Campobello Island was very important to the history of the Roosevelts. A lot of major events took place at this summer home.
Okay.
So while Eleanor took the kids up there, FDR had to stay in Washington for work, and Lucy stayed behind to help. Historians believe that this is most likely when their love affair began.
Duh.
Yeah. Eventually, Eleanor sensed that something was going on between them and decided to let Lucy go. Lucy, in turn, just enlisted in the Navy.
Oh.
And
what? Wait, women could be in the Navy then?
as
As
like
operators.
secretaries or yeah.
Women were more efficient as like telephone operators.
There was a podcast that I listened to about this recently.
Like 50% more efficient because men would get so upset.
Yeah.
Whereas women could like defer and just like keep it moving basically.
Yeah.
What year was this?
1916.
Oh.
So she enlisted in the Navy, and the next thing Eleanor knew, Lucy was assigned to Franklin's office. His closest friends tried to keep their love affair a secret.
Yes.
She tried to kind of help.
Yeah.
Even hosting them in their own homes to help him avoid suspicion, but that did not stop the gossip in Washington. Eleanor's cousin, Alice Roosevelt Longworth, even encouraged their affair and did her part to help them sneak around too.
Oh.
She later commented, "He deserved a good time. He was married to Eleanor."
Burn.
People in their family really did not like her. She was
independent.
She was.
Had her
that's
own
basically
mind.
what she was. Strong and had her own voice and thoughts.
She was doing her own thing
Yeah.
and like wasn't just a cookie cutter like wife.
Yeah. She also like didn't care about parties and balls and the things that these wealthy women were supposed to care about.
Because that's all they had. It
Yeah.
sounds like she was actually educated.
Yeah.
Right?
She was very well educated.
Yeah. Because these other women, like, they stopped their education because they were just supposed to be a wife.
Yeah.
And, like, throw parties.
Totally. People in her family were... yeah. People really resented her in this...
In her own family? That's so upsetting.
Yeah.
That's so upsetting.
Well, she had a really rough life. We'll get into more of that in the next episode.
Okay.
I wanted to kind of keep it...
That's why she's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
no, totally.
It sucks to have a rough life, but it makes you better.
Totally.
In certain ways, right?
I wanted to keep it under my hat that she was going to be the subject of the next episode, but I've already spilled the beans.
Yes. Thanks, Rye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in 1918, Franklin went on a naval trip to Europe and came down with pneumonia in both lungs.
Oh.
He was forced to return in September, and while unpacking his suitcase, Eleanor found a packet of love letters from Lucy Mercer.
Yikes.
She was also really good at trying to compartmentalize things and try and she sort of knew things were going on, but she was able to put it out of her mind because she was good at turning things off in that way. But with these love letters, she couldn't
ignore it.
She couldn't ignore it anymore.
Yeah.
So she confronts FDR, and she actually offered him a divorce in 1918. She later wrote, "The bottom dropped out of my particular world. I faced myself, my surroundings, my world, honestly for the first time."
That's real.
And Franklin probably would have married Lucy Mercer if he could have, but his mommy stepped in.
He could have.
Not with mommy. His mom basically said divorce would ruin his career. The Roosevelts in Washington were living well beyond their means.
Oh.
And mommy was footing the bills.
How did she have money?
They were the Roosevelts.
Old money.
Old money.
Like,
yeah. They had all of the money.
Institutional sort of
Totally.
wealth. Not
and
money, but wealth.
Huge estates in the Hudson Valley and in Long Island and blah, blah, blah. But so they're living beyond their means, and mommy was footing the bills. So she basically threatened to cut him off from the family estate if he didn't stay married to Eleanor and find a way to make their marriage work. So, like the cowardly little fuckboy that he was, he decided to lie to his lover and tell her that Eleanor had refused him a divorce.
Oh, what a baby.
Seriously.
What a baby.
Rather than admitting that his mommy was the one that was calling the shots.
I mean, I get it. He still wants his dick sucked.
Yeah.
So he can't be like, my mom said I can't do this.
Yeah, exactly. One of Lucy's cousins later said, I know that a marriage would have taken place, but as Lucy said to us, Eleanor was not willing to step aside.
Wow.
She was the one that actually suggested divorce, because she's like, no, fuck you.
Yeah.
In reality, Eleanor was more than willing to let her husband go, but reluctantly agreed to stay with him on 2 conditions.
Oh.
1, Franklin had to agree never to see Lucy Mercer ever again. And 2, Eleanor would never again have to share a bedroom with her horn dog husband.
Okay. What an amazing deal.
Yeah. But she never fully recovered from this betrayal. Even though she kind of got her way, she still really held on to this betrayal and resented him for the rest of her life.
Could you blame her?
No, not at all. So after this point in their marriage, she gave approximately 0 fucks about their relationship and decided to focus instead on her activism and his career. Even though she kind of didn't care about him personally, they had children together, they were tied together, so she wanted to make sure that he was successful in some way. Their son James later described their marriage after the affair as, quote, an armed truce that endured until the day he died. Eleanor later wrote, I have the memory of an elephant. I can forgive, but never forget.
I mean, she's a woman.
Yeah. In 1923, she wrote in an article, quote, it has been brought to my attention that the wives of Tibet have many husbands. This to me...
I need to go to Tibet. What?
Yeah.
Bye.
This to me seems a good thing, since so many husbands have so many wives.
I'm searching for the lie.
Yeah.
But here I am.
So with their affair officially over, Lucy Mercer moved back to New York and became a governess for the 6 children of Winthrop Rutherford, a wealthy widower who she ended up marrying about 1.5 years later, despite their 30-year age difference.
Shocked.
A few years passed.
I mean, I'm sorry, I'm gooped.
Yes. So a few years passed, and James Cox was nominated as the Democratic candidate for president in 1920.
I know him.
And while most people already assumed that he would probably lose to Warren Harding, FDR decided that running as Cox's VP would be a good political opportunity, whether they won or not.
Yes.
To help him with his campaign, Roosevelt hired a bubbly young secretary from the Democratic Party's national headquarters named Marguerite Missy LeHand. At first, Missy didn't have that much contact with FDR, but after Cox lost the election, Eleanor asked her to come up to the Roosevelt's home in Hyde Park, and Missy, proved herself invaluable to the Roosevelts, and eventually became FDR's full-time personal secretary.
Sounds familiar.
But then Franklin was struck with polio while on vacation at Campobello Island in the summer of 1921. His legs were permanently paralyzed, and the road to recovery was long. For months afterward, Eleanor was forced to bathe him, shave him, feed him, brush his teeth, and even give him enemas.
So his arms didn't work?
He was in really bad shape.
Oh, okay. In the beginning.
In the beginning, yeah. At this point in their marriage, she was like, didn't want really anything to do with him, and then suddenly had to be like, he was basically like an infant. Yeah. Missy, though, was one of the few other people who were allowed to see him and help him in these first few months after his affliction. When Franklin was finally well enough to travel, he left for an extended cruise on a houseboat in Florida, taking his personal valet, Leroy Jones, with him, along with his personal secretary, Missy LeHand. Eleanor liked to keep...
Leroy sounds black?
Yeah, he's black.
Okay.
Leroy,
I'm like, is there any white Leroys? Methinks no.
Yeah. So Eleanor was really all about, like, she wanted to keep busy. She found life on this houseboat incredibly boring.
I couldn't imagine.
Unbearably boring. And after spending so much time playing nursemaid for him, she wanted to get back to her volunteer work. She wanted to get back to her activism, and she was more than happy to let Missy go on this trip instead. Yeah. She did go and was on the houseboat for like a small amount of time, but it was like, no.
Yeah.
You go ahead, Missy.
Yeah, you got this.
Yeah. But the trip was actually good for FDR, and he did show improvement. He did gain some function back. He never could fully walk without some kind of crutch or something. But he did regain some sensation in his legs and was able to sort of move a little bit without a wheelchair.
He was able to brush his teeth.
Yeah. He eventually ended up deciding to buy his own houseboat so that he could go on more of these vacations with Missy. And he took several more leisure cruises in the years to come with her.
Okay.
Whether or not Missy and Franklin had a physical relationship is sort of still up for debate. Thanks to his paralysis, they probably could not have had a conventional sexual relationship. But either way, there is no question whatsoever that they developed a deep emotional relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And their bond lasted until Missy's death.
Oh.
Yeah.
She died first?
Yeah, she died first. So in 1924, FDR
Poisoned by Eleanor? I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Let me stop slandering her.
So in 1924, FDR found a small ramshackle resort with a hot spring in Georgia where he started going for hydrotherapy. The warm waters helped ease his pain, and he'd heard of other patients regaining the use of their legs after similar treatments. So he eventually bought the property, renaming it Warm Springs and investing a good portion of his fortune to build it up as a world-class rehabilitation clinic for polio victims.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
It actually later became part of the March of Dimes, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's like premature babies with birth defects.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
But initially it was started as like this polio thing.
Maybe it would be, maybe it like grew out of.
Yeah. So Eleanor, again, found life in Warm Springs just as boring as she did the houseboat. So Missy became the default hostess for FDR's second home in Georgia. Missy, thankfully, actually really loved it there and became a critical part of FDR's recovery effort. She was so devoted to Franklin, in fact, that she actually suffered a nervous breakdown in 1927 when she found out that he was still in love with Lucy Mercer Rutherford. It turned out that...
How did she find this out?
So it turned out that even though he had promised Eleanor he would never speak to her again or see her again.
Oh, no.
He had stayed in touch with her and had been writing letters to her all through the 20s. And some historians speculate that Missy found a stash of his letters.
Yeah.
And that's why she had her breakdown. She recovered and went on working for him and loving him, but she had health issues for the rest of her life after this.
Wow.
Yeah. And she probably had health issues before this, and it was part of contributed to...
Probably exacerbated whatever, like, pre-existing condition she had.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
But
sad.
she had like a serious breakdown when she maybe found these letters, but likely found all these letters to Lucy Mercer Rutherford. Lucy Rutherford at this point, because she remarried.
Oh, yeah, that's right, yes.
So eventually FDR returned to the political arena, and in 1928 he ran for governor of New York, and he won.
Okay. This is when Huey was governor.
Yeah. So when the Roosevelts moved in... This is so funny that these are so...
They're contemporaries.
Like, yeah. So when the Roosevelts moved into the governor's mansion in Albany...
Stop copying me!
Missy had a room right next to Franklin's with a connecting door.
Oh!
And she was often seen coming in and out of his room late at night in her nightgown. During these years in Albany, the pack of reporters covering FDR started to notice Missy and dubbed her FDR's right-hand woman. Eleanor was traveling a lot. She was doing a ton of activism and all this volunteer work and stuff, and she spent a lot of time in New York City, even though he was in Albany.
Yeah.
And when she was gone, Missy would act as the hostess for state dinners and social events in Eleanor's place.
Okay.
After a few years as governor, Franklin ran for president and won, secretly making arrangements for Lucy Rutherford to attend his inauguration and swearing in, without Eleanor or Missy knowing.
Ooh, yikes.
Missy helped oversee everything when they moved to Washington. She became known as the Queen of the White House staff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Cabinet secretaries, congressmen, senators, and ambassadors all learned that buttering Missy up would help them gain access to the president. And a biographer later described Missy as, quote, the Swiss Army knife... squeeze me. Damn these cocktails. A biographer later described Missy as, quote, the Swiss Army knife of the White House. A formidable, multi-talented multitasker.
Oh, okay.
Now, try saying multi-talented multitasker after 3 Vieux Carres.
I'm not going to do it. It's a trick.
So another biographer wrote that, quote, beneath the complexity, it is absolutely clear that Franklin was the love of Missy's life, and that he adored her and depended on her for affection and support as well as work.
Wow, okay.
Yet another wrote, quote, some Roosevelt historians insist that their relationship was never consummated. Eleanor and the children accepted the relationship, which speaks for its innocence. Sarah, his mother, spoke favorably of Missy's family and upbringing. Years later, only Elliot, of all the children, would declare that it had not been as benign as historians like to believe.
Oh, Elliot.
Spilling all the tea.
All the tea.
One of Eleanor's biographers said that she had always treated Missy LeHand warmly, quote, as an elder daughter, or, in the manner of Asian matriarchs, as the junior wife. Elliot Roosevelt later said that he believed, quote, Missy alleviated mother's guilt.
I could see that.
Yeah. She allowed her to travel without worrying that Franklin would lack for companionship. And in one of her later books, Eleanor wrote that she occasionally failed to, quote, meet the need of someone whom I love dearly. You must learn to allow someone else to meet the need without bitterness or envy and accept it.
You can't be everything to your spouse. You just can't.
Especially when you hate them.
Yeah. No.
Along with all of Missy's official duties, she also did a lot to help FDR relax and stay in good spirits despite his heavy workload and the overwhelming issues facing the country. Every day, FDR liked to take time for what he liked to call the children's hour. In the White House, he would have these sort of daily events where he would like take an hour away from work and he would mix cocktails and spend time flirting and gossiping and chatting and generally kikiing with his inner circle.
Yeah.
Which of course included Missy.
Duh.
I mean, it basically
Why was it called the children's hour?
I'm not quite sure on
I'm
that.
like, were his kids there? Because that seems inappropriate.
No, I think it was he was kind of trying to be like, oh, it's this sort of like innocent fun time, like recess.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Okay.
Eleanor hated drinking.
Oh.
We'll get into why more in the next episode, but she was also really terrible at small talk. And so she rarely attended the children's hours, preferring instead to talk to her husband about social issues and causes that were important to her.
She is me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. She was incredibly driven and sometimes badgered him on certain political issues.
Yeah.
Especially like policy decisions. She was really wonky. Like she really cared about like the policy, the meat of what was being done. And while he appreciated her advice, he sometimes tired of her crusading and just wanted to relax. And she didn't have an off button.
Yeah.
So their son Jimmy once said that Eleanor seemed incapable of giving FDR, quote, that touch of triviality he needed to lighten his burden.
Like, let's talk about the weather.
Yeah. Missy, on the other hand...
People be like...
Yeah. Missy, on the other hand, was the one who did lighten his burden. But in 1941, the burden was too much for her. She collapsed at a party in the White House, probably from a combination of a stroke and a heart attack.
What?
Yeah. She was laid up in bed in her room in the White House for weeks before being transferred to a hospital because she actually deteriorated rather than getting better. So one biographer speculates that an entry in the White House usher's diary for August 1st, 1941 included a code name for Lucy Rutherford, suggesting that Lucy was invited to a private dinner with the president in the White House while Missy lay sedated and suffering in her room upstairs.
Is that true?
I mean, there's this White House diary entry that...
Who's writing the White House diary entry?
The ushers had like a code name for Lucy because she was not allowed to see the president.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And they always use the same name.
Wow. She had it bad for him.
Yeah. So Missy was later moved to FDR's clinic in Warm Springs in Georgia. It's hard because it seems basically like he did love all of these women.
Yeah. You can love all of them.
Yeah. So despite his sort of wandering eye, Franklin never gave up on Missy.
Yeah.
He paid off all of her medical bills at his expense, and he even changed his will so that half of the proceeds of his estate, if he died before her, would go to help support Missy until she died. Okay. And then the way it was written was basically like if Missy died before that money was all used up, then it would return to Eleanor and their children. But Missy died on July 31st, 1944. Okay. FDR was away on a World War II military tour of the Pacific, and he issued an official statement. Memories of more than a score of years of devoted service enhance the sense of personal loss which Miss LeHand's passing brings. Faithful and painstaking, with the charm of manner inspired by tact and kindness of heart, she was utterly selfless in her devotion to duty. Hers was a quiet efficiency, which made her a real genius in getting things done. Her memory will ever be held in affectionate remembrance and appreciation, not only by all the members of our family, but by the wide circle of those whose duties brought them into contact with her.
Wow.
This was at a time when reporters sort of left their suspicions about Franklin's feelings for other women in his life out of their stories. They gave him a little bit of a...
That's nice.
They gave him room to be himself.
Yeah. I think it's probably because of the war.
Yeah.
Like,
there was a lot of also
no.
Security issues about not saying where he spends time and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so shortly after Missy's death, the president was on a train trip full of reporters and arranged for an unscheduled stop in New Jersey so that he would spend an afternoon with his recently widowed friend, Lucy Rutherford.
Oh.
When the train stopped, the reporters looked up from their poker game and asked what was going on. And when they found out the reason for the stop, they just ignored it and went back to their cards.
Yeah.
After Missy's death, Lucy was one of the only women who could help Franklin, again, lighten his load. During the war, when he was, he was under insane stress.
Yeah.
And actually, the stress of World War II had started taking its toll on his health, and he was starting to lose weight and look sickly.
There was just so much happening at that time.
Yeah.
So much happening.
And he had been in office for more than 12 years at this point.
Yeah.
So he asked his daughter Anna if she would help arrange meetings between he and Lucy.
Okay.
And at first, Anna was angry that he would put her in such a difficult position between her and her mother and him. But ultimately, she gave in because she saw how much good it did to her father to see Lucy. So she was kind of just like, okay, I get it. Later,
Mom's not fucking with you like that anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So. Anna later remembered, they were occasions which I welcomed for my father because they were lighthearted and gay, affording a few hours of much needed relaxation. Lucy even started visiting the White House using the alias Mrs. Paul Johnson.
Okay.
Which is the same name that they were using before. And while their meetings almost certainly were not sexual because there was always witnesses present, FDR still did everything in his power to keep them secret from Eleanor. Jimmy Roosevelt later said, quote, I doubt father felt he was doing anything wrong in seeing Lucy, but he believed mother would take it badly and would be hurt.
I mean, duh.
Yeah. When FDR returned from the Yalta Conference in the winter of 1945, he was gaunt and pale with dark circles under his eyes.
Oh, no.
He was stressed out, overworked, and suffering from high blood pressure and its complications. Anna arranged for Lucy Rutherford to visit him at his little White House in Warm Springs at the clinic, and she arrived on April 9th with a friend of hers who came along to paint FDR's portrait.
Okay.
The next day, he sat for the painting, and then he and Lucy drove to a nearby mountaintop to watch the sunset. 2 days later, he posed for the portrait again, but while chatting with Lucy, his head suddenly slumped forward, and he said, I have a terrific pain in the back of my head. And then he collapsed.
Yeah.
When Eleanor heard that her husband had fainted, she decided to carry on with her afternoon engagements. She said that she worried that canceling on her engagements would arouse suspicion about the president's health.
I understand, yeah.
So while at a benefit later in the day, she received another call saying that she needed to return to the White House at once.
Yeah.
And she knew before she even got there that it was not good news.
Yeah. There was no texting back then.
Yeah, exactly.
Be like, bitch, get here.
Yeah.
It's real.
So 3 hours after his collapse, FDR died from a severe cerebral hemorrhage.
Wow.
He was 63 years old.
Okay.
And I think he was something only like 80 some odd days into his fourth term.
Fourth term, yeah. A third term is insane.
Yeah.
A fourth is like, wow, where are we?
Lucy Rutherford was at his side when he died, but within an hour of his death, she told her friend that was there to paint the portrait, we must pack up and go.
We got to get out of here.
Yeah. Eleanor caught a flight down from Washington to Georgia and arrived in Warm Springs around midnight. She asked how he had died, and somebody told her the story.
Yeah.
He was sitting for a portrait and spending his day with Lucy.
Yeah.
Eleanor showed no emotion.
I mean...
She went into his bedroom where her husband's body lay, and she closed the door behind her. And when she finally came back out, she asked some more questions and learned that Lucy had frequently visited the White House and that her daughter, Anna, had been making the arrangements. Anna said, "Mother was so upset about everything.
Why?
And now so upset with me."
Oh.
After 2 or 3 days, though, that was all. We never spoke about it again.
I feel like so much time went by that she almost should let it go.
I mean, like I said earlier, she held on to this resentment for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was...
At the wrong person.
Yeah.
As it is usually, like, oh, this woman did this.
I think if it had been Missy, it would have been different. But because it was Lucy, and she was the one that really kind of... She broke their relationship. She was the one that... Well, at least in Eleanor's mind.
Yeah.
Missy was sort of... Like, Eleanor let it happen.
Yeah.
And kind of...
Encouraged it?
In a certain way, yeah. Yeah. Like I said, that biographer said she was like the junior wife.
Yeah.
Whereas Lucy's affair was on Lucy's terms and FDR's terms.
And
Eleanor was on the dark about it.
Yeah. It was back when he still was like having sex.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
So I think that the reason she was so hurt by Anna was that it was Lucy. And if it had been anyone else, it wouldn't have been such a big deal. Weeks later, after his death, Eleanor found the portrait that Lucy's friend had painted.
Okay.
And arranged to have it sent to Lucy.
Oh, that's so nice.
She wrote back, "Thank you so very much. You must know that it will be treasured always.
Yeah.
I send you, as I find it impossible not to, my love and deep sympathy."
That's real.
When Lucy died from leukemia a few years later, there was a picture of FDR by her bedside, but she had destroyed their letters.
Wow.
Yeah. After Franklin's death, Eleanor said, quote, "He might have been happier with a wife who was uncritical. That, yeah.
I mean,
that I was never able to be, and he had to find it in other people."
Yeah. Yeah.
Lucy Mercer Rutherford and Marguerite Missy LeHand were two of the most important of those other people, but they were not the only ones. The movie Hyde Park on Hudson reveals the president's affair with his sixth cousin, Margaret Daisy Suckley. Daisy also happened to breed terriers.
Oh.
And she gave FDR his famous dog Fala.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like Lucy, she was also by his side in Warm Springs when he died.
Okay. Did he have any children outside of their marriage?
No.
Oh, okay.
Or at least not that... If anyone knew about it, I would know about it because I've read so much about them. I think it's because of the polio.
Yeah.
Honestly, if everything had still been functional, yes,
like Harding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Franklin was also rumored to have been involved with Dorothy Schiff, a former publisher of the New York Post.
Oh.
Schiff's biographer later claimed that she admitted to having an affair with him between 1936 and 1943.
Oh,
and that her husband knew about it and didn't mind.
Okay.
And then there was Princess Martha of Sweden.
Ooh.
A royal who was forced to flee Scandinavia in 1941 after a Nazi invasion. And rumors
was she Jewish?
I think it was just because she was a royal.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? And Hitler...
Yeah, was not about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So rumors of their affair spread like wildfire, and she was always visiting the White House and Franklin's home in Hyde Park whenever Eleanor was out of town. Obviously, I didn't really talk about his legacy as a politician.
That's
and
okay. You were talking about the scandal, though.
Yeah. I want to say he really was a great man in a lot of ways, and he did a lot of things for this country that we are still benefiting from today. Yeah. But he was a shit husband.
Yeah, I have a very realistic expectation for romantic partnership, especially between like heterosexual people. There's all these weird constraints, and it's like you're supposed to have just one and only, but that's not realistic, and that's not human nature. And I'm not shocked at all by any of it. It's nice that he was able to have so many loves. For me personally,
no,
but
especially
it's shitty how he had to hide it from his wife. And pretend.
But really, Lucy was the one that he had to hide. I think Missy was sort of more like Eleanor
She knew the deal.
Yeah.
Considering Missy. Like, she just
I think by the time Missy came along, she had kind of already resigned herself to a different life.
Yeah.
And was kind of just like, you know what? I don't want to be fucking with him anyway. So
I mean, there's different types of love. There's like the companionate sorts.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't want to touch your penis.
Yeah. No,
Find
and she
someone
was,
else who will.
It was definitely much more of like a partnership than a romantic marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah. They were really good for each other in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think he benefited from her more than she did from him.
I mean, duh.
Yeah.
Duh. Tale as old as time.
Yeah. And I think America benefited from
both
her.
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. Well,
I like
so
it.
that's my story.
Thank
Ta-da!
you. How dare you?
So I guess that's... Do you have any?
I don't have any.
Well,
I have
I'll cheers myself.
I have a big ball of ice if you would like to cheers. This has been Stephanie Domingo.
And Tux Lurzel.
Thank you to Tim Clough, our editor, our producer, I like to call him our podfather. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Written reviews are especially important. If you like us, please share us with the class. Please tell a friend, tell all of your friends. Mm-hmm. Follow us on social media, Beyond Reproach Pod, on Facebook, Insta, Twitter.
All the socials.
All the needs. No one's saying that but me.
Yeah.
Hashtag sad, all caps.
The social needs.
Okay, no one's saying that either.
Don't you dare. All right.
Bye.
Toodaloo.